In other news today, a workplace review which led to the sudden resignation of former Governor General Payette has been released. In the report, allegations by some employees that Payette presided over a toxic work environment at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. 43 participants allege the environment was hostile. Others use words like toxic or poison. There were also reports that the atmosphere inside Rideau Hall was one of humiliation, disrespect, and being condescending as well, with allegations of yelling, screaming, demeaning comments. The heavily redacted report does not make findings of fact or determine whether the conducted report there actually took place. But more on this with Howard Levitt. He is an employment and labor relations lawyer. Hey, Howard, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me. Delighted to be on.
Okay, so, allegations from staff members of aggressive conduct, demeaning comments, public humiliation, toxic, poisoned environment. Your reaction to this report, Howard?
That's the world I live in. Harassment cases, toxic environments. Look, it's outrageous. It happened in the Governor General, which is supposed to be a model of decorum and protocol. And I hope she does not get the pension she otherwise would have got, which Parliament can deny her legally.
What happens now in terms of this report? Could it stand in a court of law? What are the next steps, do you think?
Well, she's going to skirt her way into the wilderness and not be heard of again or seen, and probably be unemployable because of what she's done and the reaction, the public attention to what she's done. The employees may have cases, or many of them may have cases against the government for damages. And those who have quit along the way may have a good claim for constructive dismissal, respectively, now that it's been found that their complaints were justified. Trudeau should be embarrassed for hiring without any real process and for hiring her despite her background and behaving this way in the past to previous employers. And hopefully Parliament will consider whether or not she should get the severance pay the Governor General's Act gives her, but not if Parliament passes a motion that she doesn't get it.
Speaking of the Prime Minister, we know, Howard, that at this point, anyway, he has yet to take any responsibility and, in fact, was asked would he have done anything different as these allegations came to light last summer, and said no, he would not do anything different. That to one side. Tell me about the numbers. I mean, there were dozens of people interviewed as part of this report. Close to 4 dozen talked about a hostile environment and toxic and poisoned as well. What does that say to you?
It says to me that it went on for a long time. Trudeau heard about it a year ago, did nothing to address it. And when he said he thinks she's doing a great job a year ago, what message did that send to the employees there? That there was no hope, no respite whatsoever. And it gives them a better case against the government now. But when you have that kind of near unanimity, it tells you this was not a secret. It tells you that it must have been absolutely terrible for this many people to rise up in unison when finally given the chance to an investigation to tell what their experience was, and it was a horrid experience.
As someone who deals with employment and labor law, as you know, you're following closely just in the last 10 years, Howard. I mean, things have shifted quite dramatically. And, when people find themselves in situations, a toxic workplace, for example, what used to be tolerated is no longer tolerated. And things are moving pretty quickly, aren't they?
They sure are. But the test still is the same. Every employee who thinks they're in a poisoned environment may not be legally. For example, if you're being disciplined, performance management, as long as it's not being done abusively, people think, well, gee, they're giving me warnings. I don't deserve a warning. Therefore, it must be a toxic work environment. No, that's not what a toxic work environment is. A toxic work environment is an environment in which somebody, according to the court, should never have to put up with it because it's so outrageous and so unreasonable and so abusive. That's a toxic work environment that gives employees the right to sue for constructive dismissal or sue for negligence. And yes, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. We didn't hear the words poison work environment or toxic or abusive workplace 10 years ago.
Something else, too, I'm curious about, Howard, with all the experience you have, how many times do you hear from people who say, I wanted to say something, it was an awful situation, but I was really worried about retribution and losing my job?
I would say that I heard that a lot 10 years ago, still 5 years ago. Today, I hear it a little bit. Today, people understand that they have rights. It's more than an inchoate sensation. They might have rights. People know if they're treated badly in the workplace, they have rights. And although some feel powerless and impotent, will do nothing and won't go to HR or anybody else, especially with their own supervisors treating them badly, more people than ever before are doing something about it by making a complaint or following some sort of whistleblowing protocol in their workplace. Or going to court, or going to see someone like myself.
Absolutely. Hey, it's always great to talk to you, Howard. I appreciate your candor.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you.
Howard Levitt joining us there. Meantime, still on this story, the Assembly of First Nations National Chief Perry Bellegarde says he would like to see our country have a First Nations Governor General to replace Julie Payette. Bellegarde is among the voices who are calling for one. He says it would send a strong message to young people and adds that having more First Nations at all levels of government is a positive move toward greater reconciliation in Canada. Okay, straight